consultation. That's so you have to continue. So you have to private consultation. That's the next. Okay, we'll open. Thank you very much.
Very recent. It has around 200 years of history. So of course the irony is that on one hand, you want to
separation of the self from the body in a sense.
Yes.
But it's also true when you do body organ transplants, and when you separate the idea of the body as a physical body and the idea of the self separately. Is when you donate your organs, for example, when you think of the body as a separate physical material body and this idea of the self as separate, which is not so in religion. So I was just wondering if there's a very clear, in Denmark, very clear separation of, because all controversy about this.
Yeah, in case of the organ donation, there is certain kind of difficulty with respect to whether the part stands for the whole. Otherwise, if we were to think about ourselves, we would think of the heart as just one organ, maybe hierarchically superior than some other organs, hierarchically superior than the kidney maybe, but we wouldn't think that the heart constitutes me. But if it were to be transplanted, the other person is quite likely to think that I have two cells, maybe that organ is not just really a heart or an organ in itself, but it represents a cell.
Are you not imposing a particular definition of death, whereas people may have more expanded understanding of life? A person might think that this is my mother and she is dead to all intents and purposes as far as her brain is concerned, but her heart is beating. And as long as the heart beats, I consider this person to be alive. Now, I understand your dilemma. You need a beating heart for that organ to become a gift to save another person's life. But from the point of view of the person whose heart it is, and their near and dear ones, it may seem as if you're robbing them of their last resources of life. When you make these decisions, do you sometimes weigh the consequences of possible error? Can there be mistakes? What are the checks and balances that you put in to ensure that nothing weighs on your conscience?
Yeah, good question. In the law, we said that therefore people must diagnose brain death on 2 occasions, 6 hours apart. And the 4 people would be the treating doctor looking after the patient, a neurologist or neurosurgeon, the medical superintendent of the hospital, or one of his person who nominates, and finally one person from the government. The government has a panel, and one of these doctors would do that. This has also hindered the acceptance of a deceased organ donation, because it's very difficult to get these 4 people, especially in a public hospital where the neurosurgeon is sleeping at home and he doesn't want to come back and diagnose brain death. What's in it for him?
शेर सिंह जी नमस्ते जी आप मेरा परफॉर्मेंस के लिए नहीं आए यार ठंड थी मैं बिना सॉक्स पहन के किया ये हमारा काउंटर क्लोज्ड है
So yeah, we'll start by introducing each other, I think. Wait for the gong. Oh, we're right next door. Oh my gosh.
It's right here, the stage.
Okay.
Right, so we'll start with again.
Yeah, you start.
So let's for 1 second assume that none of this is real, right? You're dead.
Yes.
So you are at this point, you don't have your reality anymore. Whatever you process of this data will not come to any use, you know. But you can just keep processing.
I'm totally against rituals.
You have decided, you have chosen one fragment from that huge life.
Right.
Whatever, 40, 50 years. After that you have chosen one idea, that is the carrying that small dictionary with you.
Right.
That means it won't metamorphose into something else. At least maybe iPad. But fundamentally the words will remain words, the form of books will somehow remain the books, and also of course the body will also remain the body kind of thing.
Okay, if I'm allowed the body, yes, why not?
No, I'm saying once you are going with the dictionary, of course the body will, because this is the body will read it.
Okay.
So only the eyes will not hover around.
Yes.
I think the body is entering this situation. That's why we're trying to filmize it before, in front of your eyes. You will actually visualize that what kind of life will be afterwards. That is where the situation is.
Yes.
So this is where you have to think about that if in case you are given a choice to decide what kind of, how the situation, the thing, as the time is over. But we have come. Thank you very much.
They told me that, can you imagine a scene in your life where you would like to be locked in for eternity? It was a bit constricting. It was like, I don't want to be locked in a scene for the, it would be boring.
In this very curious place between forgetting, but also there being some kind of a lingering memory or a trace in our actions in this world. So I was wondering whether you could speak a little bit about the way in which philosophically Hinduism or Hinduism thinks then of the problem of death and of forgetting.
The journey starts from birth and ends at death, or whether it continues. In fact, Kathopanishad is about this very question. The first question Nachiketa put before Yama. Some say that one doesn't exist after death, and some say no, one continues to exist. So what is the truth? You see, ultimately human life is given for happiness. If all the memory of the torments that a person undergoes after life, he retains that, then he would not be able to cultivate happiness.
Right.
So therefore he is given a fresh chance. I start on a clean slate. But some people do retain of their good deeds. Some people retain the traits.
Last minute exercise.
I think we've...
Thank you.
हाँ, मतलब I think एक तरीके से जो मौत है अशरफ की, मतलब ये टीवी की जो बात है ये बहुत अजीब सी बात है, क्योंकि एक तरीके से हर जगह है और सबको है और सब जो है एक तरीके से कैरी कर रहे हैं और ऑब्वियसली अब इंटरवेंशंस भी हो रहे हैं कि लोगों को लाइन में लगा दो, उनको खाना दो, इंजेक्शन करा दो.
ओके सुनीता जी, नमस्कार.
नमस्कार रानी जी,
कैसे हैं आप?
बस ठीक हो.
ठीक है. और आप जो है अभी किस जॉब पे हो, क्या काम करते हो?
मैं इस लाइन में हूँ जैसे पेशेंट.
हाँ हाँ.
जैसे बिस्तर से उठता नहीं है.
हाँ हाँ.
बिस्तर में पैरालिसिस हो गया, मतलब काफ़ी सालों से बीमार बिस्तर में।
ओके,
वही
उस तरह से है। तो
हाँ।
अभी किसके साथ काम किया लास्ट टाइम आपने?
लास्ट अभी मैं यहाँ ये इंडसगंज में,
हाँ हाँ,
माथुर साहब है,
हाँ हाँ,
उन्हीं के मामी जी के।
कितना उम्र था उनका?
उम्र तो शायद 80 से ऊपर ही था। एकदम से लास्ट स्टेज है जो उम्र जी चुका है उन लोग।
हाँ हाँ,
ठीक है, तकलीफ से अच्छा है वो लोग।
देखो ये तो निश्चित है सुनीता जी की मृत्यु तो सबको होनी है।
हाँ, ये जितना भी ताकतवर हो, जितना भी पैसा वाला हो, गरीब हो,
सबको होना
ये
है।
एक दिन आना है।
क्योंकि आप जैसे पेशेंटों के साथ बहुत रही हैं जो बिल्कुल मौत के नज़दीक रहे हैं।
नज़दीक।
हाँ, तो आपने वो क्षण देखे हैं।
They're very educated people who go and deliberate on climate change. And there are 21 conferences or parties that have happened with virtually no real action. And now, increasingly, we are getting evidence that this is one of the major mass extinctions on this planet. The first one that we know of was about 450 million years ago. The second one was about 375 million years ago. The third, which is the biggest ever, and we didn't cause it, we weren't even around. Mammals weren't around at that time. I remember reading these things, and this is the only two stories that ever led me to think about death.
Meaning is impossible. Why? Because meaning is contingent upon choices among things. And if you have an infinite amount of time, then you don't have to make choices among anything, because you could infinitely experience everything. In which case, nothing is worth more than anything else. And in that case, nothing is worth anything. So, in fact, it is the mortality that gives us some kind of a pressure to create meaning for this little speck of time that we have on this planet. And so in that way, it's actually kind of a gift.
Corporeality of death, that is something which shakes everybody. Yes. So it began with my real fear of death as a child, enormous fear of death. So in fact, till the age of 25, I had never seen a corpse. Abhishekmila in some senses had a very loyal disciple called Mark, who understood what Henri Lassalle was doing, and yet they both knew that the path of meditation was a dangerous one and that death could happen at any point.
Why would you say, why is that?
Because samadhi is culmination. It is the anxiety to see God, and in the end, yes, for those who are believers, samadhi is death. And so there was fear for Lassalle, and I think in some senses of dying, the corporeality of dying, not of seeing the light, not of seeing God. These are sociological ways in which in every religion people
try to make sense of this.
They are socialized into seeing God in one way or the other. And that is interesting because Mark actually told him, I will come and I will help you to die. The resolution came much later. It came when I was 44. So in some senses, I think the fact of my own impending death, which happened because I had a cerebral stroke. I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor of that event, which was physiologically a near-death experience. And near-death experiences are not often catalogued. In my case, it is. It's in a book called The Children of Nature. Then stroke victims do experience this. Only 1/3 survive. I am such a survivor. 1/3 are handicapped and 1/3 die. So I would say that space that I entered, that long tunnel of dreaming, it was very, very brilliant. I mean, it was amazingly...
What did you see? I mean, was it past? What was it? Or was it present? Or was it, I mean, was it projection? Do you recall what it was?
And dreaming. It was the dreaming where you know when you wake up in the short spaces that you wake up that you actually may not wake up.
I was working on a film 10 years ago, in 2003. We went to this little graveyard in the outskirts of Kupwara called Regipura. And it was a very wonderful sort of, in the way in Kashmir, how in summer things can be very, very beautiful and calm. And, it was on a little hill slope. And you entered this graveyard, Kabristan, and it was filled with these rows of graves. And most of them just had these little metal plaques with numbers, and sequentially from, I think the earliest, if I remember, was probably 1991 and all the way to the present. So you could actually walk through this graveyard, and it was like a long, chronology of the years since 1991 to 2003, which is when I was there. Some of them carried names, but those were invariably the ones that carried names were of people who were meant to be from Pakistan, and the others didn't. I would say that most of them didn't.
How did it mean meant from Pakistan?
Because it would just say Waqar from Lahore.
Lahore, okay.
But we don't know.
Okay.
Graves, people say, no, but these are not mass graves, because mass graves gives the idea of a whole lot of bodies kind of dumped
in one big hole.
One big place. Yeah. But I don't see what difference it makes, like the graveyard I described to you. It had 283 graves. Maybe they were lined sequentially and not in a pile. And I sort of started thinking that, what does it mean? Because after all, whoever is killing these men, they could equally not have the bodies show up.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, is it now the problem that the Indian government hasn't found a more
down and people don't know where they are from? Right. But very often, bodies are handed over to people. It is part of the structure of occupation, to remind people of the enormity of what they are up against. So it's true that for people these are memorials of their own suffering and what they're going through. I started just doing a little more reading into it, and I wondered that how is it that the term can be used for a mosque? A mosque which is, say, destroyed can also be referred to as a shaheed. So how does an inanimate object become a shaheed?
The portrayal of death has also changed. For example, if you look at Kudiyattam, which is a classical Indian theatrical form, death was portrayed there but displayed only in terms of languages and signs, only in terms of mudras, using hands and the face. The actor, the performer who was portraying death, never actually did anything within his body to die on stage. He only displayed in a speech, in an oratory kind of a fashion, that a character that he's portraying has died. But there is also a practice within Kudiyattam where, by controlling the breathing, and only masters can do it, could attain a state of breathing in which his body would attain a state that is very close to dying. And then he would remain in that state for some time before then willing himself back out of that state and coming back to what he's performing.
I think most jailers and jail superintendents who sort of are situated in the jail premises, who live very close to the jail, the offices are there, they have a very sort of interesting relationship with the death penalty. In one of the cases that was recently decided by the Supreme Court, they were most keen to find out from us as to what was happening in the case, very clear sense that they did not want to hang this guy. so you saw that how Afzal Guru was hanged without his family being informed. But here you have a jailer who called the local thana of where his family lives. He got the local thana people to pay money out of their pocket because his family was extremely poor, the prisoner's family. Got them to give them money and get them to take a bus to where the jail was. And I think there are a lot of these humane stories that one finds from individuals who are agents of the state. And at that micro-human level, there's a lot of sympathy, and there's a lot of... it's a strange mixture of sympathy and not wanting to be the ones responsible for hanging somebody. You know.
This tsunami experience, for me, was closest to the element of surrender. That's what I felt, the closest possibility, because I actually felt I'm gone. I gave up. In a very cool way, without any fear, without any memories of any kind. I didn't think of anybody. Within the water, with full force, I'm rolling inside, hitting a lot of things. Completely alert and enjoying that process also at one level. And not worried. The only thing that occurred to me was, this is it, okay. And that's the time I survived. Again, quotes, I survived, quotes. So, for me, this is the closest moment of surrender for me, where you actually said, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
And you're not. It's like same like the bike accident, where I felt exactly like that this is it over. And nothing happened to you. Here also nothing happened to you.
Yeah.
And so to the extent, when the water recedes and goes back, and you are lying flat on your ground, with nothing in your body, and with all that huge thunderous sound that was experienced before, suddenly becomes very, 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 very quiet. And that time, I was very confused whether I'm alive or dead. It's that again the same confusion, whether what is this that has happened to me? It's impossible that I am alive right now. So maybe I'm not alive. So it's an imagination now, it's a perception of something. So it's that kind of a process, kind of situation where I'm always dealing with.
So fearlessness and fierceness. And that's the most exciting thing about Chamunda, is the fact that you meet her, when you see her, she has, the first thing that you see is that she holds this decapitated skull in her hand. And that's one of the things that, she's severed life itself. She's holding it up as a trophy, the severed head. And as we look at her more, she wears this garland of skulls. And then if you carry on further, if you look at the whole image, that particular one, she is this violent form of a goddess who's screaming with all her guts out, and she's got a flaming head where there's the actual tejas and the energy of the body is flaming out of her like this huge fire blazing. It's essentially in that early medieval period where there was an extreme amount of warfare, is a time when you see the rise of Chamunda in that post-Gupta period. What Chamunda offers you is a complete loss of vanity, and it's unadulterated. It's the idea of getting to a place where it's shorn of all artifice and shorn of an exteriorization. It's to be able to take it consciously to a state of truth, which can only be in death. Because all reality and all life is mediated through an aesthetics of illusion. So the only space of truth that can exist is in a space of death.
You may listen to the 3 talks and the consultation on 4 channels.
It's important for me to start off by saying that I support people's right to commit suicide. I think that this system of people who have attempted suicide and quote-unquote failed, charging them with 306. I think that needs to change. And I think it is visiting violence upon someone who's attempted suicide to charge them with a crime. A whole lot of suicides are about heartbreak. I'm talking about instances where I think calling it a suicide is continuing the violence that has been visited upon people.
Already.
Yeah, and it is also about placing responsibility on the victim of really what are hate crimes over a long period of time. So I don't think of them as suicides. I think of these as murders, even though the act of killing is in the hand of the person who's dead.
But I'm also looking forward to pandemic after the fire.
To live a philosophical life is never the life of the same. It is as if, as it were, the philosophical life is living a life of the other. Something else living in a life of synchrony. So there is a diasynchronic life. It's life that is as if between the philosopher and philosopher, between the self and self of the philosopher, there is a void. There is a kind of separation. And this ontological void is where truth occurs. The philosophical truth occurs. So what a philosopher does then? A philosopher is living a philosophical life, means introducing, while living a life, is introducing an ontological void in his own life.
Not like to have anything
from this world. Okay.
I would not like to have anything from this world in my afterlife. Anything.
So you are actually so disappointed with being
Yes.
alive?
Yes.
And there is nothing which has really fascinated you?
Nothing. Yes, I'm depressed, I'm disappointed, and I would not like any object, anything, but yeah, I would just want a feeling. I'm talking to my sister, which is gone, so I would like that to happen. And the moments which I could not feel at that time when she was gone, I want to feel that. Okay, she was very introvert. She wouldn't like to go to family's relatives. She wouldn't get a picture. And the night, she died early morning. And the night when she was to go, like, I stayed with her. I woke up with her like all night. We were chatting till 4 o'clock. And that was the first and the only time I conversed with her for so long. So that shows me that she knew it. She knew about it, that she's going to go. And the strange thing is, she never कोई dress up नहीं करती थी. Like, she didn't want to make up करना, कुछ नहीं, never in her life. And that night, we woke up all night and we chatted along. She told me about her boyfriends, her crushes, no boyfriends, her crushes, then how many boys liked her, and this sort of talks. And there was this conditioner, Mrs. Marino, so I washed her hair. She had long hair. I washed her hair, and then we ironed it. We ironed it, and then she wore her lehenga. Oh my God, can you imagine? She knew it. She's to go tomorrow morning. She wore a lehenga, and in the drawing room, she picked up the flowers, and she told me to click photographs. And I clicked them, and nobody knew that she wouldn't be here. And that was the only photographs which we had.
Time. So these small, sweet memories are very precious to you. Right? If this is precious to you, so I assume that you would like to continue with this kind of a frame in the eternity. Is that so?
Yes, I want her to be with me again.
Again?
Yes. I don't think I can give her any gift. Like maybe, she was the best. I don't think I can give her any gift. But is it really important to, I'm not sure, is it really important to imagine, because I don't regret it that she's gone.
That's exactly the right moment we are saying. You are exactly saying me the thing which I heard from no one.
Yeah.
You don't believe that she's gone. That means it is eternity. It is a possibility which can go into eternity.